Hello and welcome to Beyond American Shores, where Japanese toys are seen and heard. And welcome to the very first installment of something that I like to call SwitchMania! This is where I take a look at the various Astro Switches from Kamen Rider Fourze. So, I guess you can count the Fourze Driver and the Meteor Galaxy reviews all part of SwitchMania. With that said, let's take a look at a bunch of Astro Switches, as I have Legend Rider Switch Set 2, Astro Switch Set 3, Legend Rider Switch Set 3, and Astro Switch Set 4. Now, this episode's not going to have any final verdicts whatsoever. Basically, I'm just going to take a look at Astro Switches and how they work on the Fourze Driver. Well, with that said, let's take a look at the Astro Switch sets that I've mentioned earlier. First up is Legend Rider Switch Set 2. So on the front of the box, it basically shows all the switches together with a picture of Fourze in its base states. And on the back, it basically shows how the four switches work with the Fourze Driver and with the arcade game Kamen Rider Battle Gamba Ride. Here we have Legend Rider Switch Set 2. I like how this set actually comes with one switch per shape. So let's start with our circle switch, the Ryuki switch. Now, one big difference of the Rider switches than the normal Astro switches is that, one, it doesn't have a number on it. It actually has the symbol of the Rider that's represented in the switch. And two, all the Rider switches are just buttons, instead of the different buttons that are shown on the 4D Astro switches. However, the buttons have the Rider's face on it. So as you can see, the Ryuki face actually looks pretty nice. Next up is the X switch, Kuga. Kamen Rider Kuga switch. This one actually looks pretty good as well. I love how all these Rider switches have pretty good detail when it comes to the buttons, since the buttons are actually the mask of the Rider. Next up is the Agito switch. This one's our triangle switch. It actually looks pretty cool. It's interesting that the Agito switch has a gray triangle instead of a gold one, because the suit design of Kamen Rider Agito has more gold on it than gray. And finally, our square switch, Kamen Rider 2, or as everybody calls him, Kamen Rider Nigo. This is a Showa Rider switch, and it actually looks really cool. I like the dark green that's actually on this switch for the square shape. It actually really fits well. So let's take a look at the sounds of all four switches. Next up is Legend Rider Switch Set 3. The front of the box is almost exactly the same as Legend Rider Switch Set 2's box, except it has a different picture of Kamen Rider Fourze and the background's red. The back of the packaging is basically the same, showing the switches how they work with the Fourze Driver and how the switches work in Kamen Rider. Here we have Legend Rider Switch Set 3. Much like Legend Rider Switch 2, this set comes with 4 switches. So let's take a look at our first switch, our circle switch, the Den-O switch. This one actually looks really nice. The red on the circle is basically the same one as the one on the Ryuki switch, and also on the Kuga switch. And the button design actually looks pretty spot on to the helmet design. Next up is the Fourze switch, the X switch for this set. It actually looks not bad. The X on the Fourze switch is basically the same color as the triangle on the Agito switch. They are both gray. The head actually looks pretty good as well. Next up, our triangle switch, the V3 switch. And this one actually looks pretty cool. It does match the color of the suit, and the helmet design actually looks really good on the button. And finally, we have the Hibiki switch. This one actually looks really cool. I really like the purple on this switch. It actually looks really awesome. The head sculpt actually looks pretty good too. Now let's take a look at the sounds of all 4 switches. Next up is Astro Switch Set 3. The package is much smaller than the Legend Rider Switch sets because, you know, it only comes with 2 switches. So on the front of the box you see the 2 switches that are part of this set, and as you can see, it comes with 1 Kamen Rider card of Fourze's Fire States. There's also a picture of Fourze's Fire States over on the side. On the back, it shows how the switches can work in both the Fourze Driver and in the Kamen Rider arcade machine. Here we have Astro Switch Set number 3. This time around, I'm going to go in order. So, let's start with switch number 18, the Shield switch. This one actually looks pretty cool. It's got a white square around it, and a shiny sticker. When you push back the button, it looks like a giant rocket. Or, if you think about it, a snowboard, or surfboard, or maybe a hoverboard. But it's supposed to be a shield, so this actually looks pretty cool. And finally, we have switch number 19, Gatling. So this goes on the triangle foot. It's a light blue triangle switch, and this will give your triangle leg a Gatling gun. So wouldn't this be awesome? The fire switch, plus the launcher switch, plus the Gatling switch, plus the shield switch. I mean, wouldn't that be awesome? To turn the Gatling switch on, what you do is turn the barrel until it snaps. So let's take a look at the sounds for these 2 switches. The final switch set I'm going to look at today is Astro Switch Set 4. The box is basically the same thing as Astro Switch Set 3, except this time it actually shows a picture of Fourze in his base states, and it also comes with a Kamen Rider card of Fourze's base states. So here we have Astro Switch Set 4. Again, we have 2 switches in this set. So let's take a look at our first switch, switch number 21, the Stealth switch. This X switch will give your X leg a module that will make you invisible for 5 seconds. Don't let this circle fool you on this switch. This is an X switch, and it actually looks pretty cool. It's hammer time as we have switch number 22, the hammer switch. This will turn your square arm into a giant hammer. Now this actually looks pretty cool. To turn the switch on, you just push the hammer down and it'll basically turn on. So let's take a look at the sounds of both switches. Well, that's today's episode of Beyond American Shores, and as always, I'm the Tokuto Reviewer, and see you guys on the next Beyond American Shores. Reviewer out!